Hello, my name is Elizabeth and I want to share something with you that completely changed the way I learned English. When you read with someone, you're not just sharing words, you're building a world together. That world became real for me the day I sat down with my best friend and opened a simple English storybook. The beginning. I was afraid to speak. I used to be so shy. Whenever someone spoke to me in English, my heart would start racing. I knew the words in my head, but my mouth wouldn't move. I would panic and just smile, pretending I didn't hear them clearly. At school, I avoided group discussions. In front of strangers, I froze. I had English textbooks, yes, but reading them alone felt boring. Speaking out loud felt scary. I thought maybe I just wasn't meant to be good at English. Until one afternoon changed it all. The day my best friend noticed. My best friend's name is Near. We've been friends since we were children. One day, she saw me trying to read an English story on my phone. I was whispering the words to myself. She laughed and said, "Why are you whispering like it's a secret?" I looked at her and said, "I'm practicing. But I'm too shy to read out loud." Noor smiled, leaned closer, and said something that I will never forget. "Let's read it together. You read one line, I'll read the next." I hesitated. My cheeks turned red. I was embarrassed that I might mispronounce a word. But she looked at me with such comfort in her eyes. I knew I could trust her, so I said, "Okay, but you go first." Our first reading session, we opened a story called The Little Red Hen. It was a children's story, very simple. Noor read the first line slowly and clearly. Then it was my turn. My voice shook, but I read my line, and guess what? I didn't die. I didn't get laughed at. Noor just smiled and read her next line. It felt like a game of voices, of sounds, of stories. We kept going, one line each, then one paragraph each. Soon we were laughing when the characters did funny things, or correcting each other's mistakes, gently. Reading no longer felt like school. It felt like friendship. Why it worked so well when I read alone. I always feared making mistakes. But with Noor, I felt safe. She didn't judge me. When I said a word wrong, she would just repeat it gently, the right way. And I would repeat after her. We helped each other without pressure. That's the magic of practicing with a best friend. We chose short stories at first, ones with pictures and easy vocabulary. We used storybooks for children, then moved to simple English novels like The Secret Garden or Charlotte's Web. Noor loved acting, so she would use different voices for characters. That made reading fun. I followed her style. Sometimes we laughed so hard we had to stop reading. But slowly, I noticed something. My confidence was growing. Speaking out loud became natural. At first, we only read at home. But after a few weeks, I started reading out loud, even when I was alone. I would read signs in English, product labels, newspaper headlines. My voice became stronger. My pronunciation improved. I could hear the difference. Noor, and I also began using English more in our regular talks. We would try to use new words from the stories we read. If a story had the word miserable, we'd use it in a sentence like, "Noor, I feel miserable today because there's no chocolate." It was funny. It was real, and it made the word stick in my mind. Correcting each other gently. What made our reading time even more helpful was how we corrected each other. Not in a rude way. Never in a way that hurt. If I said cha-ra-tur instead of character, Noor would say, "Almost. Try again, chiracator." And when Noor struggled with a word like thought, I would help her remember the tricky GH sound. We became each other's mirrors, each other's teachers, and each other's cheerleaders. We made it a daily habit. We decided to read together every evening after dinner. Just 15 to 30 minutes. sometimes more when we got lost in the story. That small habit changed everything. I began to look forward to reading. I bought new books just for us. I downloaded English audiobooks and played the audio while we read. It helped us match the pronunciation and rhythm. Even on busy days, we read a little. Even on sad days, the stories made us smile. How it reflected in real life after a few months of reading together. Something amazing happened at school when my English teacher asked a question. I raised my hand. I spoke and I didn't panic. People looked surprised. Some even clapped. Noor gave me a thumbs up from her seat. I smiled. I knew it was because of our daily reading sessions. The practice, the laughter, the speaking out loud, it all built something strong inside me. A world of confidence. Reading with your best friend is more than learning. It's about sharing a journey. When we read stories, we also read parts of ourselves. We understood emotions better. We improved vocabulary. We laughed at silly jokes. We grew together. I will never forget those days sitting on my bed with Noor, storybook in hand, pretending to be pirates, princesses, or detectives. Those voices, those words, they shaped the English I speak today. To anyone learning English, if you're learning English and feel scared to speak, I understand you. If books feel hard, if your voice shakes, if you're worried people will laugh, been there. But find someone you trust. A friend, a sister, a cousin, anyone who makes you feel safe. Start reading together. Take turns, make mistakes, laugh, repeat, because English is not just about grammar and rules, it's about connection. And nothing connects better than a story shared between two best friends. After Noor and I got into the habit of reading English stories together, something started to change in us. It was small at first, just a little more confidence, a few more words. But we wanted more. Reading helped us with pronunciation and vocabulary. But we knew one thing was still missing: real, active speaking practice. We weren't surrounded by English speakers. Our school teachers spoke a mix of English and our native language. We didn't have any foreigners to talk to. So, we thought, why don't we become each other's speaking partners? And that's exactly what we did. The decision to make it a daily habit, it started on a Sunday evening. We were sitting in my room after finishing another story. Noor looked at me and said, "Elizabeth, we've improved so much just by reading together. Imagine what would happen if we talked in English, like really talked for just 15 minutes every day." I nodded. I'd been thinking the same thing, but I also felt nervous. What will we talk about every day? I asked. Noor smiled. Anything and everything. Our school, our dreams, our crushes, what we had for lunch. Let's not wait for the perfect topic. Let's just speak. So we made a promise. Every evening at 7 p.m., we would speak only in English for at least 15 minutes. No breaks, no switching to our native language. No matter what. We called it our English time. The first week, awkward but exciting. The first day was funny. We sat down, looked at each other and froze. We didn't know how to start. Suddenly, simple words felt difficult. Sentences came out broken. "Hello Noor, how are you?" I said, pausing after every word. "I am fine. And you?" she replied, giggling. We laughed. We sounded like robots. But we kept going. We asked each other questions like, "What did you eat today? How was school? What subject do you hate? What do you want to be when you grow up?" We answered in simple sentences. Sometimes we made mistakes. Sometimes we forgot words. But we never switched back to our native language. And that was the rule that changed everything. How our brains started thinking in English. At first, we translated everything from our mother tongue into English in our minds. I am hungry started as main bookie hoon gives, then I am hungry. But after just a few weeks of consistent practice, something incredible happened. We started thinking in English. Instead of translating, words just came. I didn't need to go from native language to English in my head. English became natural. One day I caught myself walking to school and thinking, oh no, I forgot my notebook. I paused and smiled. I had thought it in English. That's when I knew our daily speaking time was working. How we structured our speaking routine to keep things interesting. We made little plans. We gave each day a theme. Monday, weekend recap. What did you do on Saturday and Sunday? Tuesday, talk about a person, a teacher, a friend, or a family member. Wednesday, describe your dream job or a place you want to visit. Thursday, funny memory or embarrassing moment. Friday, random debate. What's better, cats or dogs? Saturday, act like you're in a cafe or shop. Practice ordering food. Sunday, review the week words we learned. Things we struggled with. This structure helped us stay on track. It also gave us reasons to use new words. If I didn't know how to say washing machine on Tuesday, I'd learn it by Wednesday. We didn't use any fancy books. Just a notebook to write new words and phrases. And sometimes, we used Google Translate when we got stuck. Slowly, our vocabulary grew. Roleplay made it fun. We turned speaking practice into a game. Sometimes we pretended to be different people. Noor would act like a restaurant server, and I'd be the customer. Hello, ma'am. What would you like to order? I would like a burger and fries. Please. Would you like a drink with that? Yes, a glass of orange juice. And so on. Other times, we pretended to be news reporters, teachers, or travelers in a foreign country. We even made mock interviews. It felt like drama class but in English. The power of listening to each other. One thing we learned early was the importance of listening. Most people focus only on speaking. But Noor and I learned that listening carefully to each other helped just as much. When she used a new phrase, like I'm feeling under the weather, I'd stop and ask, wait, what does that mean? She'd explain, and then I'd try using it too. The more we listened, the more we absorbed. The more we absorbed, the better we spoke. We also listened to English YouTubers, podcasts, and movies together. Afterward, we'd talk about what we understood, how it changed our confidence. 3 months into our routine, we noticed something amazing. We no longer feared making mistakes. In fact, we welcomed mistakes because every time we made one, we learned something. We became brave. Once, in front of the class, our English teacher asked us to explain a topic. Noor stood up first and gave a clear, simple explanation. No fear, no stuttering. Then it was my turn. I took a deep breath and spoke for 2 whole minutes. No one laughed. Everyone listened. Our teacher smiled and said, "Very well spoken, Elizabeth." I wanted to cry, not because I was sad, but because I felt proud. I remembered all those nights sitting with Noor, trying to form simple sentences. And now I was speaking in front of a whole class. Building a strong foundation. Our daily speaking routine gave us more than just words and grammar. It gave us confidence, courage, connection, consistencies every day. Even if we were tired or busy, we practiced. Some days we only spoke for 10 minutes. Other days, we chatted for over an hour. It didn't matter how long. What mattered was showing up every single day. Because fluency isn't built in a day. It's built in daily moments, the small, quiet ones, when you choose to speak instead of staying silent. To anyone trying to speak better English, I want to tell you something from my heart. You don't need a fancy class. You don't need a native speaker. You just need someone who believes in you. Find a friend, make a promise. Start small. Even 5 minutes a day can change everything. Talk about your day. Pretend to be in a cafe. Describe your favorite food. Debate which season is best. Talk about your dreams. But speak not perfectly, not fast. Just honestly, and every word you say will bring you one step closer to fluency. I believe that learning English is not just about grammar rules or vocabulary lists, it's about courage. It's about connection. It's about having someone by your side who makes you believe, I can do this. For me, that person was Trust, the secret ingredient when I first began learning English. I didn't realize how scared I really was. I wasn't just afraid of making mistakes. I was afraid of being judged, afraid of looking stupid, afraid that someone would laugh at my accent or correct me in a rude way. That fear made me silent. But she changed everything. She never laughed when I mispronounced something. She never corrected me in a harsh tone. She never made me feel small. Instead, she smiled. She listened. She waited patiently. And when I needed help, she offered it gently. That's the power of learning with someone you trust. You feel safe to be your real self. And when you feel safe, you grow. Learning together made it an adventure. There were days when we messed up so badly. We couldn't stop laughing. Like the time Noor tried to say kitchen but ended up saying chicken. I left the book in the chicken, she said with a straight face. We stared at each other for 2 seconds and then burst into laughter that echoed through the house. Or the time I tried to say, the wind is blowing, but accidentally said, the window is blowing. We weren't perfect, but we were joyful. That joy, that shared laughter made the learning process feel like an adventure, not a chore. When you learn with someone you trust, you turn mistakes into memories, you turn errors into inside jokes, and most importantly, you keep going. How emotional support made learning stronger. Sometimes people think learning a language is all about studying harder, but I learned that emotions matter just as much as effort. There were days when I felt discouraged, days when I thought, I'm never going to be fluent. My accent is too strong. I sound silly. On those days, Noor would say, look at how far you've come. Remember when you couldn't even say a full sentence? Now you're telling full stories. Don't stop now. Her words were like fuel for my soul. She believed in me even when I didn't believe in myself, and that's something no textbook can teach you. We held each other accountable. Let's be honest, self-study can be hard. There are days when you just don't feel like doing anything. But when you have someone learning with you, someone who cares, everything changes. And I kept each other on track. If I forgot our speaking time, she'd text, 7 p.m. Don't be late, I'm waiting. If she felt lazy, I'd knock on her door and say, come on, just 10 minutes. We became each other's motivators. And slowly, discipline became a habit. And the habit became progress. Learning became something we looked forward to every day. I looked forward to our reading and speaking time, not just to practice English, but to share a part of the day with Noor. We talked about our dreams. We described our imaginary travels to London, New York, and Tokyo. We spoke about heartbreak, school stress, funny classmates, and future plans, all in English. It was real. It was raw. And it was deeply healing. Because when someone listens to your heart in a second language, they don't just understand your English, they understand you. That's what Noor gave me. And I tried to give her the same in return. Our conversations became a mirror when we spoke in English. We often repeated each other's sentences. If Noor said, I'm feeling tired today because I studied too much, I would say, oh, you're feeling tired. I feel the same. I studied all night. This repetition helped us practice without even realizing it. It was like a dance. One person spoke, the other followed, then added their own steps. Over time, our sentences became smoother, our grammar more natural, and our vocabulary richer. We didn't even notice the progress right away, but one day, someone overheard us speaking and asked, "Are you both from an English medium school?" We smiled, because we weren't. We were just two girls with big dreams and a shared goal. It deepened our friendship. Learning English together didn't just improve our language skills, it deepened our friendship in ways I never expected. We shared fears. We encouraged growth. We celebrated every small win together. When Noor passed her English exam with high marks, I hugged her so tight I thought we'd fall over. When I got a compliment on my English from a stranger, she was the first person I told. These victories didn't feel like my victories or her victories, they felt like our victories. Because we climbed the mountain together step by step, word by word. Our shared goals pushed us forward. One evening, Noor said something that stayed with me. "Let's promise that one day, we'll travel to another country and speak only English for the whole trip." It became our goal, our shared dream. We talked about it often. What would we order at a restaurant? How would we ask for directions? What if someone complimented our accent? We imagined every scenario, and then we practiced it. This shared vision gave us a reason to keep improving even on the hard days. Having someone who shares your goal makes the road feel less lonely. We reflected each other's growth. People often say, "You become like the people you spend time with." With Noor, that was true. When she learned new expressions, I picked them up too. When I improved my pronunciation, she noticed and followed. We grew together, like two flowers blooming in the same sunlight, and every time I looked at her, I was reminded, if she can do it, so can I. That silent belief kept us going. Our bond became unbreakable. Years have passed now. We both speak fluent English. We've given speeches, helped others learn, and even volunteered as peer tutors. But no matter how far we go, I will always remember where it started. Two girls, one small room, a storybook, and trust. That trust turned simple reading into a lifelong journey. It turned fear into fluency, and it turned friendship into something unbreakable. To you, dear learner, if you're reading this and wondering how to improve your English, let me tell you this: you don't have to do it alone. Find someone, anyone you feel safe with. It could be your best friend, your sibling, your cousin, or even an online partner. You don't need to speak perfectly. You just need to start speaking. Speak slowly. Speak with mistakes. Speak with laughter. Speak from the heart. Because when you speak with someone who sees your light, not your don't just learn a language. You build confidence. You build joy. You build you.